He fought for freedom, carried wounded men through gunfire, and earned the nation's highest military honor. But in a quiet courtroom, a judge looked him in the eye and told him to remove that medal, calling it a distraction. What the veteran did next wasn't loud, but it shook the entire courtroom and ended the judge's career in a way no one saw coming. John Keller sat quietly in the back row of the courtroom, dressed in a modest suit and tie. But what caught everyone's eye wasn't his clothes. It was the Medal of Honor pinned to his chest. The aging war hero had come to support a young soldier wrongfully accused of assaulting a superior officer. As John stood up to testify, his limp from an old battlefield injury became visible. The entire room fell respectfully silent, except for Judge Ronald Gates. His tone was cold and direct. "Mr. Keller, please remove your medal. It's not appropriate courtroom attire." The room gasped. John looked up, surprised. "Sir, this medal is part of me. I wore it for the men who didn't come home." The judge's face tightened. "In my courtroom, it's a distraction. Take it off or be held in contempt." For a moment, the decorated veteran stood still, then slowly walked to the stand, never touching the medal. The tension was thick. People exchanged confused glances. Whispers spread across the benches. The courtroom had just witnessed a judge challenge not only a symbol of national honor but the very soul of the man who wore it. Reporters in the back were already typing. Cameras clicked silently. No one knew it yet, but that single command from the bench was about to ignite a storm that would reach every corner of the country and change the judge's career forever. By the next morning, the courtroom incident had exploded across social media. A single photo of John Keller, standing firm with his Medal of Honor still pinned on his chest, was all it took. The post was shared over 2 million times within hours. Headlines read, "Veteran humiliated in courtroom. Judge orders hero to remove medal," and "Honor on trial." Veterans groups were furious. Military families, active duty soldiers, and even senators began demanding an explanation. In small-town diners and big-city offices, people were talking about what had happened. The judge had underestimated the weight that little piece of metal carried. Meanwhile, back at his home, John sat quietly, unaware of the storm outside. He wasn't trying to start anything. In his mind, he just stood his ground, not out of pride, but for the friends he'd lost in combat. He still remembered every name, every face. That medal wasn't about him. It was about them. But Judge Gates wasn't staying silent either. In a public statement, he called the veteran disruptive and claimed the courtroom had to remain free from emotional influence. That only poured gasoline on the fire. The backlash grew louder. Protesters started gathering outside the courthouse with American flags and signs that read, "Respect our heroes." TV crews swarmed the building. Pressure mounted from every direction. Yet through all the noise, John never once asked for attention. He didn't go on TV. He didn't make speeches. He just kept showing up to court, quiet and steady, with the medal still in place. What started as a simple act of respect was turning into a national movement. And it was only just beginning. Days passed, but the tension didn't die down. In fact, it got louder. News channels ran loops of the courtroom footage, showing the exact moment Judge Gates demanded the Medal of Honor be removed. Military leaders, retired generals, and even members of Congress began weighing in. The court's phone lines were overwhelmed with thousands of messages, some angry, others tearful. For the first time in his long career, Judge Gates found himself at the center of a controversy that had nothing to do with law and everything to do with honor. At a nearby elementary school, a teacher showed her class John Keller's picture and explained what courage meant. In hospitals, wounded veterans watched the story unfold and wiped tears from their eyes. For them, John wasn't just a man. He was a reminder that their sacrifices still mattered. Meanwhile, Judge Gates began facing consequences. Petitions circulated calling for his resignation. Local veterans associations refused to participate in public events if he was present. Sponsors pulled out of community fundraisers where he was set to speak. His public image, once respected, now deeply tarnished, was collapsing. But John didn't gloat. When a reporter asked him if the judge deserved to lose his job, John simply said, I didn't wear this medal to fight a judge. I wore it to remember the ones who never got the chance to come home. That moment silenced the room. It wasn't anger that moved people. It was John's calm dignity, his quiet strength, the kind of strength that didn't yell, but stood tall. Across the nation, people began calling him the Silent Salute. And with each new headline, it became clear. This wasn't just a courtroom story anymore. It was something far greater, a reminder of what real respect looks like. The courtroom was packed tighter than ever when John returned for what was supposed to be just another hearing. But this time, things felt different. Reporters lined the hallways. Uniformed veterans stood shoulder to shoulder with civilians, hands over hearts as John walked in, his Medal of Honor gleaming against his chest. The same court that had once ordered him to remove it was now filled with quiet reverence. Even Judge Gates looked different, his face pale, his eyes avoiding contact. Something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Then came the announcement. Judge Gates was stepping down. The backlash had become too great. In a shaky voice, he admitted his decision was a grave error in judgment, and said he never intended to disrespect anyone's service. He asked John to accept his apology. The room went silent. Cameras zoomed in. Everyone waited. John stood up slowly, walked to the bench, and extended his hand. I accept your apology, he said. But this medal isn't about me. It's for the ones who didn't come back. That one line became an instant headline. Social media exploded again, but this time with unity and pride. School assemblies played clips of John's words. Church sermons mentioned his humility. A national memorial sent him an invitation to speak on Veterans Day, but John declined the spotlight. He went back to his quiet life, mowing his lawn and visiting the graves of fallen friends, just as he always had. But something had changed forever. A movement had been born, not loud or political but powerful and deeply human. Across the country, people weren't just remembering service members, they were honoring them properly. And all because one quiet man refused to take off a medal that told 1,000 untold stories. Months passed. The headlines faded, but the impact of John Keller's quiet stand didn't. Across the country, military ceremonies began, including a moment of silence for the Silent Salute. Young recruits were told his story in training. School textbooks began adding a single image, John, standing tall with his Medal of Honor, shaking hands with the judge who tried to silence him. But John never sought fame. He lived his life like he always had, modestly, with morning coffee on his porch, the American flag rising each dawn, and a soft-spoken kindness that never wavered. Then, on Veterans Day, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived from the President of the United States, personally inviting John to be the guest of honor at Arlington. At first, he hesitated. Crowds weren't his thing. But then he looked at the medal, weathered, scratched, but still shining. It wasn't just his. It belonged to the friends he lost, the ones whose names he still whispered in quiet prayers. So he went. Standing at Arlington, before a sea of people and cameras, John didn't give a speech. He simply stood, saluted the flag, and let the silence speak for him. And that silence? It roared louder than any applause. People cried. Soldiers stood straighter. Even the president removed his hat. When he returned home that evening, John placed the medal back on its stand, wiped it gently, and whispered, "We're still here, boys." That night, a neighbor posted a photo. John Keller, front porch, flag lit up behind him, a soft smile on his face. It went viral again, but this time, there were no hashtags, just two words shared across the nation: honor lives. And with that, John Keller's story ended. Not in noise or pride, but in legacy. Quiet, unshakable, eternal. If the story moved you, comment, and share it to keep the legacy of true heroes alive. Don't forget to subscribe to Unheard Heroes for more powerful and emotional untold stories.